Hey, co-reporter, welcome back to my channel. It's time for another recap of what went down on the ultimatum. So after the confrontation between the boys and the girls, where Alex let Antonio know all the crap that Roxanne had been talking about him, the couples go back to each other. And Roxanne and Antonio, the first thing they do when they get back to their apartment is get to bumping and grinding. To be honest with you guys, I think that was a form of hysterical bonding to lock Antonio back in after Roxanne got exposed for talking mad crap about him. So I will say, though, in her defense, that it seems like she actually wants to be with him now. She does talk about appreciating the things that he does for her. So it seems like maybe she feels like threatened by the stuff that Alex was saying. She thought that for the first time ever, it was, her that was afraid of losing Antonio. So it was interesting to watch the tables turn a little bit in that respect. Antonio promises to do even more, and they both promise to be more willing to exchange I love yous within their relationship. It sounds like it's something that is mainly like needed by Antonio, but they're both going to put in the effort there. They do talk about something that I felt like was so like ignorant and like childish and dumb, to be honest with you. They start talking about how marriage could be beneficial to them, and they claim that like married people are more is it credible, like they're more credible or something like that, and it would help her with her business. I'm like, girl, stop it. You drop ship pasties, most likely from AliExpress or something like that. Okay. Like, you don't need, like, what meetings are you popping up for with your 4 jobs to run this like pasty business that hasn't gone profitable yet? Okay. And then she says that for him as well, it could help, like, his image if he gets married. And this fool claims, and I'm talking about Alex, this fool claims that like married people are more trustworthy. Like if you see that he's wearing a ring on his finger, you think he's a more trustworthy person. I will tell you, as a young, cute tenderoni, that I do not trust married men. I actually think they're worse than single men, because the amount of times that married men with a big fat ring on their fingers have the audacity to come up to me flirting like I'm gonna go for it. It would disgust you if you knew how many times that happens to me. In fact, that happened to me again last week, when I was at a restaurant with my friend Stella, and I was actually talking to her and like other people about this. Like, we were just discussing why married men have so much goddamn audacity, especially older ones. This guy was in his 40s, maybe early 50s or something like that, trying to come after me, a woman in her 20s. Please, I don't believe this. I think married men are just as slimy, if not more slimy, than single men. So Antonio, see, I will say though that though it seems like Roxanne is now a little more into him, I feel like his fire for her kind of cooled down a little bit. But we'll see how that progresses a little bit like further down the line. When it comes to Kat and Alex, they talk about what they're expecting from each other now that they've had their experiences with other people. Kat wants Alex to be more emotional. Of course, he is quite cold. And Alex wants Kat to be more dominant, which I can understand, because she's kind of like just there, a very go with the flow, doesn't have her own opinion sort of a girl. And I could see how that could get like old as well. So I think that they're both quite valid in what it is that they are asking for the other person to like do in order to step up their relationship. Now let's get to the little Southern Belles, okay? That couple that's been together for a long time, since they were in high school, James and Ryan. Ryan, she's finally grown a little bit of balls here, and she's like, James, I want you to know that you need to get in tip-top shape on your toes and step up, because I don't get too comfortable. I can and I will leave you. And I hope that like she meant that, because I hope that this experience showed her that she doesn't have to settle for anything she doesn't want. She can get any guy, almost any guy she wants, okay? So don't settle for anybody's BS. So she tells him that, and then she also jokes about how like she and Trey, the guy that she had previously been paired with, would match all the time without even realizing it. And so James gets a little bit jealous at this point. He's like, don't bring him up, please. And yeah, so they kind of puts the kibosh on it and everything. So voila on that situation. Now let's get to Riaya and Trey, shall we? Riaya starts talking to Trey about how he has always talked about like wanting to get married, but in all those years, because they've already been together at least 2 years at this point, in all those years they've been talking about like what he pictures in marriage and this and that and what he wants. He's never once asked her, what do you want, Raya, as my future wife in a marriage? What would make you happy? And that was something that really stuck out to me. It feels like, a lot of girls have this expression. They say that like sometimes men, it's just a taxi light off. It feels like he falls under the umbrella of the guy whose taxi light is on. He just wants to get married and he wants to take whoever along for the ride. And I noticed this early on. Remember when I talked about in that video about him being trifling for going for Lisa, talking about she's the ideal woman after she just cursed out his girlfriend for literally no reason. And then he fell for Ryann instantly as well, talking about, can we keep in contact next week when you go back to our significant others? What about after this? Do you see us together after this experiment? I have a crush on, like, this guy is just looking for somebody to fulfill the role in his life. And so, keep your eye out, Riaya. I don't know if this is something that really suits you. And then she tells him that she wants to spend a year living in the city, which I believe is Atlanta, because she's lived in the suburbs her whole life and she just wants to try city life. And girl, one thing I will tell you as a suburban girly who moved to the city, like as soon as I was grown, once you go to the city, you will never go back to the burbs. So don't think that this is just a little experience that's going to last a year or whatever. Like the walkability and just the lifestyle of being in the city is unmatched, in my opinion. And I think she's like a similar type of girl to me. So I think she's going to love it as well. But the thing is, Trey doesn't want to move with her because that would mean giving up his career. And he's worked really hard to get to where he's at with his education, then of course with his years of work experience. So it just doesn't make sense to give that up to follow Riaya to go live in the city for a year. I'm sorry, but the girl, she's a Hooters waitress. And it doesn't even matter what establishment she waitresses for, but she's a waitress. So like for her, like she can pretty much get a job pretty easily, I feel like. But would it be enough to have like a nice size, like apartment or whatever for the two of them while Trey takes a bit longer to find a job there? Is it worth it for Trey to like find a temporary job for only a year, then have to go look again when they move back? Like it just doesn't make sense for Trey, in my opinion. So I could see why he wants to stay there. But this is what I've been saying about Riaya since like that episode where she was insisting that James hold her hand on the floor or whatever. She's very immature. And when she was talking about like sex and stuff, it felt like a teenager talking about it. She's very immature. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It just is what it is. She hasn't lived enough life, had enough experience and whatnot. So I personally think that it would be best for her to just leave this relationship, go for a thing in the city as a single girly, okay? Like marriage shouldn't, in my opinion, shouldn't be like on the table for her right now. Like shouldn't be top of mind. She's got so much living to do. And like, she's got that sparkle in her eye of somebody who wants to just go take over the world and just try new things and like, have a blast, live her life to the fullest. And I think that that's what she should be doing. Now, Trey, who is ever so mature in this situation, offers for them to go long distance in their relationship in order for Riaya to get to experience her city life while he gets to maintain his job out in the burbs. And she refuses that too. And it's like, girl, you were just not reasonable. Like, where's the money going to come from for your little vacation if neither of you are working? Like, what? Hello, is anybody home? Anyway, let's get to Antonio and Roxanne. Woo, child, fighting as usual. This is just a couple that I don't understand how they even got together in the first place, to be honest with you. So this time they're fighting because he's sick of telling her all the time that he loves her and getting nothing from her in return. And so she kind of like presents her case on the situation, and she is as cold as ever. Like she's just such a mean, cold woman. I do not understand his attraction for her at all. He says that he doesn't feel good enough for her. And then she validates that. She's like, yeah, well, basically you're not. Like, what she says is, there are leagues, honey, okay? And he's like, oh, so you're basically saying that you're out of my league. And she's like, well, listen, I'm in a higher one. I'm older. I've been working longer and grinding. And if you want to be like the kingpin, you want to be like the one on top in the relationship, go find yourself a 20-year-old, okay? Because you're not going to be that in this relationship with me, a boss ass B. And so she tells him that she loves him, but her mind is in a different place. Like, How many times does this woman need to tell you, Antonio, through her actions and her words, that she does not want you like that? Like, why are you still sticking around? You're a placeholder for her. I feel like she's just scared to be alone, although she doesn't want to be with him. He says that he feels dumb for doing all the things he does for her just to be like unappreciated. And then this guy, and I told you I have a video called Antonio is Delusional, because you know what he says? He gaslights himself and says, Roxanne, like you don't mean those things you're saying. You don't actually think you're out of my league. I'm like, dude, like, come on, like, wake up, please. Like, get some dignity. Go save that final little shred, not even a shred. A shred is too long. That crumb of dignity that you have left, and walk away from this situation for your own good. Now, let's go back to Ryan and James, shall we? At this point, the youngest couple in the game is fighting over her tapping her nails on the counter in the middle of her conversation with him. It didn't seem aggressive. It didn't seem mean. It didn't seem like anything shady. So I was taken aback by James's reaction to that. He says that his mom used to do some weird aggressive things like that with him when he was small. And so that bothers him. And then he just keeps fighting her all night. Like, she tries to go to bed to sleep and the man is still there fighting her. And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. The things people deal with in relationships, I swear to God, like, how do people tolerate this? Like, I could not. I don't have the patience for these relationships. Like, what the things people will put up with, I can't understand it. Absolutely freaking not. You're not going to keep me up at night because you're mad that I tapped my nails on the table. Like, it's like a normal reaction that I've seen many people do. I've probably done it a couple times. Like, he's a bit unhinged there. Now, while she's like exhausted and it's like 2-3 in the morning, she's crying that she's already given him everything she can give. She's got nothing left. And yeah, and he's like, you were comfortable giving your all to Trey. Well, Trey is not a fucking, not me swearing. Trey is not a freaking psycho, okay? That's why she was comfortable giving her all to him. Like, he's just a nice, supportive dude who doesn't have these, like, hidden aggressions or whatever. Like, he's like, come on now. The fight, you guys, went from 1 in the morning until about 4 in the morning. Okay. Like, I can't. That must have ruined both of their days the next day because they didn't get to sleep at all. Now, I wasn't listening too much when Riaya and Trey went to meet up with her sister, so I'm going to need to lean on you guys a bit more here. But why were they talking to her about their ex life? That is really weird. And why was the sister asking about that? I have never in my life asked my sister or my brothers about their life like that. Like, that's none of my business. That's one of the last things in the world that I would ever be interested in hearing about. So the fact that, like, Raya's sister was so invested in asking so many questions about that really creeped me out, to be honest with you. So then we go back to James and Ryan. At this point, James decides that he's finally ready to open up to Ryan about his big secret. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, his big secret didn't really add up to me. I still think that he's hiding something. He says that he started, trigger warning, okay? He says that he started self-harming to numb the pain of not feeling like he could ever measure up to his dad, and he worries that he's not good enough for Ryan or anybody. And, like, this is what I felt like was a bit off. He said that, like, when he was young, his mom was always out working. She was never at the house, and he needed someone to talk to about something. And so to me, I was like, okay, something happened to this guy, and he never felt like he was safe enough to go talk to somebody about what happened. And we have to read between the lines on what that means. And then the thing about, like, being compared to his dad, to me felt like a cover up, because James was 9 years old when his dad died. So, like, the idea that, like, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old child was being compared to his dad, and that's why he started self-harming, it doesn't make sense to me. I think that there's something more going on there that is really eating him up inside, and I hope that he is able to free himself of that, because it's not his fault that happened to him at all, and he might need some help and some support working through that. Okay. So he does tell Ryan that she is the love of his life, which I thought was wonderful and beautiful. And he claims that he never had doubts about wanting to marry her, but he was more always scared of letting her down, which, is quite sad. Ryan is crying with him. They were both crying, by the way, and she reassures him of her love and apologizes for ever making him feel not good enough for her. And I will say it was interesting to me that we got a PSA for self-harm and suicide, but never one about domestic violence, because we need one for all of that. It's great that we got that one, right? For this stuff that James was talking about, but we also needed a PSA about what happened between Lisa and Brian. That was completely unacceptable, and it was 1000% domestic violence, and it deserved a PSA. We would have gotten a PSA if Brian put his hands on Lisa. Okay, so it's not to like criticize them for doing one for James, but we needed one for Brian as well, and how men can also be victims of DV. Anyway, you guys, that does it. A recap of what went down on the Ultimatum Season 2, Episode 7. As usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything. So please make sure to leave all of your thoughts, all of your opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.